everyone. We're back here again, and this time we're going to be focusing on how to answer inverse proportion. So in this example, you're going to be seeing uh, the number of men that are working to build a house and the number of days for them to finish building such houses. Okay, so what you're going to notice here is that if we increase the value of men, okay, the number of days to finish a particular house go less. So imagine that if you are working on a certain homework and you do it individually versus the group, you will understand that the amount of time for you to finish that in group is way lesser than the amount of time you do that in terms of individual. So this is what inverse proportion means. So that means the amount of if the value of the x values are increasing, then that means the y values will automatically decrease. Or as the one variable increases, the other value decreases, or exactly the opposite. So as the one value decrease, then the other value increases. Now, what are the things that we need to learn here for us to be able to know how to answer word problems in terms of inverse proportion? So now in here, you will see that it says that the product of two quantities of inverse proportion is constant. Okay? All right. So in here, what we need to understand is that if you take a look at the product of these particular values, you will see that the answers will automatically give you 120. And suppose that we say that these values 20 and 40 represents our x sub 1, y sub 1. And if we multiply them and we are going to have these 30 and 40 as your x sub 2, y sub 2, you will understand that multiplying their values will automatically give you the same answer. Okay, so 120 is equivalent to 120. So what is the importance of us knowing this particular equation? Now, this one is applicable if we are going to solve word problems or simple word problems involving inverse proportion. Let me give you an example. So suppose that the question is if 32 men can reap a field in 15 days, how many days can men reap the same field? So going back to the idea that we have x sub 1, y sub 1 is equivalent to x sub 2 times y sub 2. Okay, we can now represent these particular units as the value of x and y particularly. So let's say, for example, if I use x sub 1 or the values of x to represent the units for the men, then that means the number of the days will be represented as the units for the days as y sub 1. So in this case, you will know that the first value of x represents x sub 1 and the first value of y represents y sub 1. And if you continue it to the next statement, this will tell us that these 20 men will now represent x sub 2. And this means that if we're looking for the number of days, then that means the missing value that we need to look for is equivalent to y sub 2. So in this kind of problem, all you need to do is to just plug in these values in that particular equation. So you will see here that this one now will be equivalent to 32. And the y is equivalent to 15, so times 15. And then x sub 2 is going to give us 20. And y sub 2 is the one that is unknown. So in this case, if that is the unknown value, then we are just going to substitute it with y. So now solving for the value of y, which represents how many days, is just a procedure of doing y is equivalent to 32 times 15 divided by 20. All right. So from here, you will now know that these numbers can be canceled. So let's say, for example, I can divide 15 and 20 by 5, which gives me 3 and 4. And this 4 and 32 can be canceled out if I divide both terms by 4. So this is going to give us 8. So now we know that y is equivalent to 8 times 3, which gives you 24. So which means that the amount of days that we are looking for, the number of days for 20 men to reap the same field, will now equivalent to 24 days. All right. So the importance of knowing this equation is for you to understand that if you are going to look at the statement of the problem involving inverse proportion, you will see that the way you formatted the equation is just the same way as how you formatted the numbers. Okay. So this time, what I want you to do is to try to answer this same question, the question that we have in this particular part. Give me a minute. Okay, I would like you to try to answer this one, and please stop the video so that you can have your time to answer this question. Okay, so now I assume that you guys have answered the question. So we will now go to the discussion. So knowing a while ago that you are going to substitute the values as x sub 1, y sub 1, and x sub 2, y sub 2, we will now understand that these two particular values represents our x sub 1 and y sub 1. And the question here is that what unit or what value should we put as the y sub 2 and the x sub 2? So in here it says 8 taps. So that means the x sub 2 will have the units of the taps. However, in this question, it says if 2 taps go out of order. So that means this x sub 2 is not equivalent to 2. So suppose that you have 8 taps and 2 of that did not work. So that would mean that you will have 6 taps as the value of your x sub 2. Now, the question here says that how long will the remaining taps take to fill in the tank? So that means this how long refers to the number of minutes. And since we don't have any value to that, then we are going to represent it as the value for the y. And knowing the same equation and knowing that x sub 1, y sub 1, or x sub 1 times y sub 1, will give you the same result as x sub 2, y sub 2. All you need to do is to just substitute the values based on how you analyze the question. So this is 8 times 27 will give you an answer of having the same value with 6 times the value of y. So in here, you will now understand that you are going to solve for the value of y, which is just a simple calculation to the same procedure to what we did here. So 8 times 27 is going to be divided by 6. So from here, you know that we can cancel 8 and 6 by 2. So this is going to give us 3, and this is going to give us 4. And from here, you are now going to answer or divide 27 by 3. Okay, so this is going to give us 9. And from here, you will understand that we are going to multiply 4 and 9 to give us the value of 36. And since the unit of your y is minutes, then this would mean that the answer here will be equivalent to minutes. Okay, so I hope you guys fully understand how to answer this particular problem. Okay. Now, let's move on to the next topic. So in this particular part, we are going to solve direct and inverse proportion, which involves 3 units. So what I usually do here is, if I'm going to have this particular problem, I usually write the units in a table form. So for example, 5 men can paint 2 houses in 3 days. So automatically I write the unit for the men, for the houses, and for the days. Okay. And the values will go at the bottom. So let's say men is 5, houses are 2, days are 3. And your aim this time is to change or to look for the number of days will it take for 10 men to paint each 8 such houses. Okay, so now in here you will know that there are 2 units that had changed. From 5 men it became 10, and from 2 houses it became 8. So some of you might get confused. What do we need to do here? Okay, so in this case, guys, what you need to understand is you have to focus on a single particular unit so that it will be easier for you to have a calculation. So let's say, for example, our focus here will be on the men, which means that the number of the houses will remain fixed. Okay, so let's say 5 men, 2 houses, and 3 days. So the calculation now will tell you, what if there's only 1 man working for 2 houses? How many days will it take for him to finish? So what you need to understand in here is that as the number of men decreases, the number of days for these 2 houses to finish will increase or will be multiplied. So in this case, what you need to understand is we are going to multiply these 2 numbers for us to get the number of calculations in here. So 1 man can finish it, okay, 5 times more for 3 days. So technically it's 15 days, but we're not going to solve anything here because we are not looking for 1. We're looking for 10 men. So we will just remain this calculation as it is. So now in here, for the next one, you will know that it will be easier to convert 1 to become 10. So if 1 man can finish it with the number of 15 days, or 5 times 3, the number of 10 men, if you increase the number of men, then that means the number of days will be split. Okay? So this will give us an idea that the calculation now will be given, will be equal to 5 times 3. And if the number of days will be shared by men, coming from the word shared, then we are now going to divide the number of days with the men working. So this is 1, this is 2, and you will know that this is going to give us 3/2, which is equivalent to 1.5 days. So since we got 1.5 days here, so our next job is to change the number of houses, knowing that the number of men has been answered already. So what you need to do next is, again, make another table, and this time we are going to focus on the houses. So here, what we're going to do is we're going to make the number of men fixed. Okay. And if the number of men fixed, then that means our focus to change the number of houses is the one that is important. So if 10 men can finish the 2 houses in 1.5 days, so we are going to change it into a unit of 1. So what if 10 men work for a house? How many days will it take? So you know that working for 10 men to work one house, the time will be faster than the usual. So this would mean that this number of days will be cut into two, or simply will be divided into half. And afterwards, you will also understand that once you get this one house, then you can automatically convert it into 4 houses. Sorry, 8 houses. So if one of 10 men can work on one house in 1.5 times divided by 2, then that means if you multiply, or if you multiply the number of houses, then that means the number of the days will be multiplied as well. So this is going to give us a calculation of 1.5 over 2 times 8. So again, using your skill for the cancellation method, these numbers will be canceled. So this is going to give us 4. And this will arrive with the final answer of 6 days. Okay, so now we were able to get the answer here. So that means the final answer, how long will it take 10 men to paint 8 such houses, will be equivalent to 10 days, 6 days. All right, I hope you guys understand that. And in here, what I want you to do is to try to solve this particular problem and stop the video for you to have more time to answer that. Afaro, it's your time now. Why are you not going to your class? Who's your class? Seats 11, you're late. All right, please pause the video and let's see. Okay, so now I will assume that you guys were able to answer. So just like what we did here, okay, we are going to do the same thing. So let's say, for example, the first unit will be for the taps. The second unit is for the tanks. And the third unit represents the minutes or the time. So you guys can also create your own units here. It doesn't matter. So I will change it to, I will put the values here as 7, 3, and 45. Okay, so again, just like what we did, the second unit, okay, will be put into a constant value so that the 7 taps can be converted into 5 for us to get the answer. Okay, so let's start. If 7 taps can fill 3 tanks in 45 minutes, so we are going to assume, what if there's only 1 tap? And the procedure will automatically just be the same. So we multiply this. So this is going to give us a calculation of 45 times 7. So in this case, you're not going to be calculating anything yet. Okay. And after that, you are now going to the number of taps that is given in the question. So you're looking for the number of 5. You're looking for 5 taps, which means that we are going to convert this 1 tap into 5. And as the number of tap increases, then that means the amount of time to do it will be split. Okay, so in here you will understand now that these 2 values, okay, 45 times 7 will be split by 5. So this is going to be divided by 5. So the calculation now will give you 45 times 7 over 5. And from here, you will understand that these values can be canceled as well. So this one could give you 9. 9 times 7 will give you 63. Okay. Now this is for the first part. So just like what I told you guys, next part is for you to do the same procedure. So we're going to write tap, tanks, and minutes. So from here, the next thing that you guys are going to do is to, number 1, write what you have written on the last portion. So 5 taps, 3 tanks, and 63 minutes. Now this time, what we need to do is just the same thing. We make this number of men the same here. So that means in here, you are going to make the number of taps constant. Okay. And the next thing that you need to do is to change the number of tanks from 3 going to 5. So before that, we have to understand first that we are going to look for the time for 5 taps to finish 1 tank, okay, to fill 1 tank. So as you can see, if this 5 taps will fill in 1 tank, then the number of the minutes will be divided. Okay, so this would mean it's going to give us a calculation of 63 divided by 3, which gives us 21. Okay, and since this time we are now going to look for 5 such tanks. Sorry, 5 such tanks. What we need to do is to multiply the number of minutes for 1 tank by 5. So here, you will have this calculation to be multiplied. And this is going to give us 21 times 5, which gives us 105 minutes. Okay, so now as you can see, we look for the 5 taps to fill in 5 tanks, and we arrive with this particular 5 taps, 5 tanks, and the amount of time will now be equivalent to 105 minutes. Okay, so that's it. For the next meeting, for the next video, we are going to upload how to answer these portions of inverse involving algebraic equation. Okay, so I'll be seeing you guys again next meeting. Good luck and have a nice day.